Feel free, yeah, you know, works hard on this body. Right, failing your way to success. I've had a less than orthodox pathway to be standing here in front of you today. It didn't start well, but it's ended better, and it isn't over yet. So prepare to write lots and, you know, learn from my failures. It's called Failing Your Way to Success, but actually it's 10 lessons I've learned from failure. And one of the biggest lessons I've learned, and lots of these talks, there's a lot of talk and then there's the lessons. I'm going to do it the other way around. I'm going to tell you the lesson and then tell you how I learnt it, okay? It will take you on the journey easier. So one of the biggest lessons I've learned is failure is not a destination, okay? It's... why isn't that matching that then? That's odd. Okay, failure is not a destination, but it's a milestone on the path to success. Failure is only a failure if you allow it to be. But there's always a lesson to be learned. And if you learn the lesson well, you can improve your performance. And if you improve your performance, you improve your outcomes. Okay, and one of the things that over the years I've realised is I'm a master of standing back up, dusting myself off and getting back on with it. And that's what you kind of got to do in business on a day-by-day basis sometimes. So it's not a destination unless you decide, that's it, I've had enough. Okay, and at which point, sometimes, that's the right approach and you'll see what you can do in that situation. So this is my journey this far. And the biggest lesson, as I say, is failure is not a destination, it's a milestone on the path to success. Okay, and you've got to mark your failures like you mark your successes because they're moments of learning and they take effort and passion and focus and it to go all completely wrong. And you can't just walk away from that. You've got to look back at it and go, where did it go wrong? What are the seeds of this going wrong? How do I spot this in the future? What can I change? What can I alter? So that's what this talk is all about. So if you're not where you want to be yet, failure to achieve the success you want is a symptom of a problem, but not the problem itself. Okay? When something fails, that is an event, but it's an event that is caused by something. So figuring out what's caused the failure will allow you to prevent you having that failure in the first place, or again. So from most people's perspective, from the outside, that's what success looks like. Okay? You have an idea, you start a business, you do a bit of networking, perhaps a bit of marketing, you sell some stuff, and ta-da! Yeah, success. Everyone's clapping, applauding, you know, ticker tape parades and all of that kind of... We all have those dreams, don't we? But that's not what success looks like. Success is messy, and that's what success looks like. There's 20-hour days, possibly the odd divorce. You fail, you have an eureka moment, you fail big. And then there's desperation sets in, and suddenly you start to realise the patterns. Maybe they're mental patterns, maybe they're behaviours, maybe they're outcomes that aren't the way you want them to be. And then you learn how to apply that to your process to change and shape your business to help you reach success. And that's success. It's a messy process. It's not defined. All of these self-help books will tell you this is the recipe for success, and it isn't. That is the cleansed version of that person's success. And there's lessons to be learnt there, but that doesn't mean to say if you follow it like a recipe, you will have the same success. You won't, because you have a different business, you're different, the circumstances in which you are doing your business are different. So you can't just pick up a book and go, right, day one. All right, start a company. And everything will work out. It won't. It's a messy business doing business. And in the First World War, there was a German general, and he had a saying, and it was, no battle plan ever survived contact with the enemy. And I modified it to, no business plan survives contact with the customer. Because as soon as you put something in front of someone, they bring all their weight of expectations and their idea and understanding of and learning. And it gets messy. So that's my experience of what success has been. And by the way, a lot of the times, people think of success as big flash cars, big houses, and a lot of money. Sometimes success is waking up in the morning and putting your feet on the floor. Yeah? Sometimes that's a success. So success lesson 1 was learned, and I call it crash. So hands up if you've ever crashed your car. Yeah. Hands up keep your hands up if you've written off your car. Yeah, tick, yeah. Hands up who's ever crashed their own car, written it off by crashing it into their own house. Yeah, I usually find I'm the only one with my hand in the air at that point. The sting in the tail is when the insurance assessor came and looked at the car, he drove it away. Yeah, it was £500 per 2 headlights and £500. Everything seemed to be a £500 note, and it totaled up very quickly to more than what the car was worth. And there were reasons around this. The handbrake didn't work, so I left it in gear. It was a high-powered sports car. I tried turning it on one morning whilst I wasn't in the car because I thought I'll just warm it up because it was a cold day. And as I turned the car over, and it smacked me in the side of the head because it started up because it was a high-powered sports car and just drove itself into the house. My wife opened the door because, of course, there's a loud crash in the house. And she said, and I quote, "What did you do that for?" And it was like, list of tasks. Make a cup of tea, have some toast, go and warm the car up, write it off, go back. And I literally had to climb over the car because by this point the car had stalled, wasn't able to start it again, and I had to get somebody to come out and help me drag this thing so that my wife could get in and out of the house. So that's a pretty unique situation. And it wasn't planned. And it was expensive, but it taught me a lesson. And that lesson is that you want to be in a category of 1 when you're in business. Okay? You don't want to be an also-ran. Okay? You want people to know what you do and how you do it and what that value is to them and what benefit that has to their life or their business or their circumstances. So in a category of 1 is also known as a brand. Okay? So as your business, people perceive it, and if you can paint yourself as the answer to their problem, they will run at you with money. I know this for a fact, and I will prove it later. Somebody said this to me once, and it stuck in my head like somebody was ringing a bell. Brand is the result of a successfully delivered value proposition in the minds of your customer. So your customer has something, the problem, and you deliver the solution to their problem. Okay? That's what your brand is. That's what it represents. It doesn't matter about your logo, your colours, all of that. All of that is just a representation of that value. Okay? And if you can deliver that and be in that category of 1, they will come back time and time and time again. Okay? So that's what the lesson was from crashing the car into the house. Extrapolated out, rather. Success lesson 2, walk your own path. So when I left school, I sat down one morning and my father said to me, my father was a great reader of the newspaper and I could tell his mood by the angle of the newspaper. So if it was down, he was open for a conversation. If it was up, it was, he was keeping himself to himself. This particular morning, it was Careers Day. So we were all going to go into school and like some kind of magic wishing hat from Harry Potter, we were going to be told, you're a computer IT engineer. Of course, computers didn't exist actually back then. You're an abacus IT engineer. And you look like a plumber. So I went in, I had in my head, I know what I want to be. I want to be an actor. I want to be an actor. That's what I want to be. I hope I get actor, because that's what I want to be. So my dad said to me, he said, so what are you going to do for a living then, son? And I said, Dad, I want to be an actor. And he said, yeah, but how are you going to pay the bills? And he was kind of right, because I think it's somewhere between 85, 90% of actors are unemployed. So there's a high kind of attrition rate in that industry. And where I grew up in Farnborough, it wasn't it was a council estate. Nothing wrong with council estates. But it was quite a rough school. And I was quite artistic. So I was gay boy. I liked theatre and Romeo and Juliet. And I didn't fit in at all. At all. And I wasn't sure how to get started as an actor. I was literally picking up the local paper, scouring it for actor wanted. Must be able to do, accents and be quite funny. So I was taken aback by that by my dad. And he was like, look, son, he said, life's long, life's complicated, you're going to need some money. You're going to need to earn a living, you're going to need to pay for your family, you're going to need to do all this. So he had this whole thing mapped out in his head of how my life was going to progress. And he said, and it was well-meaning advice. It really was heartfelt, well-meaning advice, because it had worked for him, and it had worked for his father and his father's father. Long line of engineers. Son, get a trade. You'll always have something to fall back on. So you take your dad's advice. You listen to him. He's wiser, he's older. He hits a little harder, than your mum. Less frequently, but, So when I went into school and I said, I want to be an actor, I actually changed it and said, I want to be an engineer. And careers master said, well, that's great, because we could get you a job as a plumber. And I didn't want to be a plumber. Not many famous plumbers. Not many plumbers driving around in Ferraris. Yeah, it's changed over the years now. But the well-meaning advice was become an engineer. So the RAE was down the road, and I applied to get into the RAE. And I didn't want to do it, but I did it. And I did it because I thought other people's input was better than my own desire to be an actor. It just seemed like a dream. It just seemed unattainable. I didn't know how to start. I didn't know who to talk to. Everyone around me were practical fellows or criminals. Sometimes the two went hand in hand, depending on what time of day it was. I applied to the RE and I got in. I absolutely fluked it. And I became a mechanical aircraft fitter. That was my job. That was my trade. Put me in front of a bench and a load of metal and I'll make you an aeroplane-ish. And I was trapped. I was trapped then because I had a wage and I'd found the magical delights of cars and women and beer and women, cars. And I like engineering. I like the physical world. I like the man-made stuff. I like the way humans are ingenious in the way they approach and fix problems. And my grandfather used to say to me as a kid, there are two types of people in the world, son. There are engineers and there are people who need engineers. And he's absolutely right. There are two types of people, but he didn't get the profession right. There are customers and there are people who can service customers. We're all customers and we all want our needs met. So I was then in a horrible situation of having a trade, having a job, and not wanting to be in that job. I would have given anything. And it got to the point where I even had a mortgage. I bought my first flat on my own, back in the days when you could say, I can earn anything, and they would give you a mortgage pretty much for just turning up and having a pulse. It gave me this lesson. And Eminem, the social philosopher Eminem, summed it up quite nicely. Everybody has goals, aspirations, or whatever, and everybody has been at a point in their life where nobody believed in them. And that was where I was. I wanted so badly to be an actor. I was doing anything. I was literally, if somebody said, I've got a play on, I'm like, can I audition? At one point I was doing 3 different plays. And that lesson translates into, do not be distracted from your goals by other people's well-meaning advice, because they don't know what's best for you. Not always. Sometimes they do, but not always. So having a clear direction or a clear end point, that is vital for anything you're trying to do. When you get in your car, you just don't drive around aimlessly. You've usually got a destination in mind. You're going somewhere, okay? Same for your business. This is also true. If you believe in yourself, others will follow. They will queue up behind you. If you say, I'm really confident in what I'm doing, even if you're right or wrong, it doesn't matter. usually that doesn't matter. The outcome of whether you're right or wrong doesn't matter. It's how confident you feel about it. And then, weirdly, the universe kind of lines up and goes, yeah, it must be right. He said it would be like that, and it kind of was. I saw a film at the weekend, slight diversion, I saw a film at the weekend with Jack Black about this con artist, band leader, called Jan Levan. And there's a scene in the film where he's promised to take these people around the capitals of Europe and meet the Pope. And at the point there in Italy, he didn't actually have an appointment with his Holy Father. He had a briefcase full of money. And when you read the actual, the Wikipedia article of it, he actually turned up, and they still don't know how he did it, but he got an audience with the Pope. And it was just like this kind of, if he'd focused slightly better and had better processes in place, he could have been a major success, because with that kind of confidence, that just walk into the Vatican and say, I'm here to see the Pope, could you just, wheel him out, please? I mean, just the confidence to do that, and the universe lines up, and okay, a big bag of money, but the point is, believe in yourself and others will follow. So success lesson 3. That's the most idiotic idea I have ever had. I love it. Was what my business partner said. Rewind slightly. So at this point, I was doing a lot of amateur theatre. I had a few little voiceover bits and pieces. I was doing some extra work. Wasn't really known. Sadly passed over at the BAFTAs as man most likely to be at the back of a crowd. But I didn't know how to notch it up to the next level. You need an agent and you need connections, and I didn't know how to do that. And it was kind of in the pre-internet era, so you couldn't just stalk somebody on Facebook and put up a video and say, hire me. That didn't exist. It was still the old kind of like old boy network. We had a few ins at the BBC. We were doing some work for Smith & Jones with Talkback Productions, basically punching up scripts, putting in gags. One of the best ever pieces of critical advice I got was I'd spend all night up writing this sketch for Radio 4. And I took it back, I gave it to the editor, and the editor looked at it, read it, literally scanned it, and he gave it back and he said, great. He said, make it shorter and make it funny. I was like, oh, ouch. Okay, yeah, this is the big time. There's nobody's massaging your ego here. But it was quite obvious that I had quit engineering at this point, or rather, engineering had quit me. I had industrial asthma. That was what it was diagnosed at. Whatever it is, it's not affected me long term. But I couldn't go back to engineering. It was like the universe said, come on, wake up. Time to live the dream. And I literally woke up one morning and I thought, fuck it. What could possibly be worse than spending the rest of your life not trying to do the thing that you really want to do? It would be like being in prison. So, fuck it. And with that in mind, I still had a mortgage to pay. I still had bills to pay. A lot of my friends were still living at home with their families. And they could still live that student lifestyle. They still could. Wednesday was Friday. Tuesday was Saturday. It didn't matter. It was all very relaxed and, hey guys, it'll all work out. But I was a bit more focused. I wanted a routine, because routine is a process, and a process you can improve. Back to the engineering brain, see? So it's like these two brains are fighting in my head. And so I got involved with computers. I'd always loved computers. I had an Atari when I was a kid, and I'd moved through to a PC and discovered the joys of a Mac. I then networked the two together because I could do lots of artwork on the Mac, and I was doing it for myself, but I could then get it on the PC, and there were other things I could do with it on the PC. And I'd done some sales work for they were an internet service provider, but they were just basically a marketing company that was working for the ISP. And they put me into PC Worlds, and I'd be standing there all kind of ready to sell the internet. And what I had was effectively a laptop with a rolling demo. Okay, because every time I'd go to the PC World, I'd say, can I just plug into the telephone line? Because you remember you used to have to dial up on the telephone line, yeah? Doing, doing. But I was in the middle of the showroom, so they didn't want to trail a lead all the way out to the back of the stock room just so that I could show people the internet. You try describing to people who've never experienced the internet what the internet is. It's almost impossible. It's like you're an alien. You're to go, well, it's this collection of places that you can visit and read stuff. And people are like, well, there's a library. So one night, and it was either in Leeds or in Manchester, one night I was sat in a bar consoling myself because I had literally sold nothing for 2 weeks, and the sales manager was like on me, like, come on, Stuart, just one. And this guy, he was a careworn travelling salesman for carpets, and he was sat next to me, and we struck up a conversation, and he obviously took pity on me, and he said, so what are you trying to sell? And I was like, oh, the internet. And he was like, the what? I said, well, it's a computer thing. You can log on, you go through your telephone line, and you see all these different things. And he was like, doesn't matter. He said, when you're standing there and you're looking around, who do you see? And I said, what do you mean? He said, who's in the shop? I said, well, it's mainly young men. He said, right, okay, that's your target audience. I went, okay. He said, what does a young man want? I went, computer? He went, no. What is driving them? And I said, I don't know, money, cars, sex? He said, bingo. Okay, he said, can you see pictures of naked ladies on this internet? The light bulb went on. I became the highest, I used to say to the guys, they'd literally walk up, I would say, what are you interested in? Football? We do the football scores. Also, naked ladies. 5 minutes later, they'd be walking out, box tucked under their arm, happy as Larry. And that taught me the lesson that know your audience, know your target market, and sell them what they want. So with this burning desire to be successful as an actor, and knowing that I still needed to earn money, I thought to myself, how can I parlay this talent for comedy and sales, a weird mixture, into money in my bank account? So one night, I was at a friend's house, and we'd been drinking. There may have been some recreational herbal remedies going around. And my mate's sister's boyfriend, we called him Dr. Rock because he was a geology professor. Right? He was 22. How can you be a professor at 22? That's wrong. But he was also a guitarist, and he was making this decision. Do I go and become a guitarist, or do I, stay as a professor? And he was saying that his digs was institutional green. And then we all started vamping around silly names for colours. Everybody else was very drunk. I was slightly more sober, and I started writing some of them down, and it stuck. And the next day I went back to my mate, who was my writing partner at the time, and I said, Jay, I've had this idea for a poster. I said, and it's a colour chart with all the colours on the colour chart. Have you got it, Claire? Is it back behind you? And we renamed all the colours on the colour chart to unmentionable, disgusting, and pretty outrageous things, with the view that we could perhaps get this into Athena. Remember Athena? Woolworths, Our Price? Yeah. And so we produced this. We didn't produce the poster. We produced an A3 version of it with colour samples. Yeah, with colour samples from fads, and then we stuck the most hilarious Monday morning going, okay, so which colour is Chernobyl lamb? My three favourites are Miserable Git, Bent Copper, and Token Black. At the time, there were only 3 poster companies in the UK. There was Cartel, there was W&G, and there was GB Posters, who latterly became GBI. And W&G was actually just a distribution arm for a Swiss poster company. Cartel phoned us first, and the guy GB Posters phoned us first, and they offered us 10% and £1,000 up front, which meant that we would sign the license rights to them. They would pay us £1,000, and they would then pay us 10p for every single poster sold. When we reached 1,000, they would then start paying us 10p thing. So no risk. Essentially, it was free money. And I was like, We'll think about it, okay? I had no way of comparing it to anything. I mean, you know, it's an idea at best, and I'm selling an idea and showing them kind of roughly how it worked. Then we got a phone call literally about an hour later from Cartel, and the guy said, it's too disgusting, we couldn't possibly do it. That is the most idiotic idea I have ever seen. And I said, that's too bad, because we've sold it to GB Posters. And he went, damn, I told my business partner we should have bought it. That was at that point, I was like, yes. So I phoned them back up and spoke to the guy, Max, who just was our champion in the company. He was just brilliant. And the poster came out. We sold quite a lot, over 100,000 units in that first year. So even your most stupid idea, if well executed, can produce great results. Okay? Just because nobody else has done it doesn't mean to say that with a focus on the right customer base, that idea won't work. And I think that more small businesses that take risks and try things, okay, we all think that everyone's paying us attention. Nobody cares. Nobody's looking. Your really stupid idea that you put out there might be just what your target audience reacts to. If they don't react to it, there's so much going on in their lives that a week after you've put it in front of them, they've forgotten it. So what's the worst that can happen? So that kind of kick-started that idea that I could take a stupid idea and put it in front of the right person who could see the opportunity I was making for them, and they could give me money. And that was what was my driver at that point, was I've got to keep the roof over my head, because I really can't go back to my parents and have my dad do the I told you so lesson previously. So this is where random chance sort of took me. So I was in a chip shop. Bear in mind we had the poster. That was pretty much all we had. We had a bit of a resume with writing for Radio 4 and a couple of other places, but effectively it was the poster. And, oh yeah, so just before we move on to random chance, so got a phone call from the Victoria and Albert Museum saying that they really loved the poster and they'd like to put it in their permanent collection. Now I thought it was my mate's sister winding me up, so I told them to fuck off in no uncertain terms and hung up. They phoned me back and she said, oh, I think we got interrupted from Victoria. And it really was. So that poster is in the permanent collection at the Victoria and Albert Museum without even trying, first time out. So that poster, I was trying to parlay it into more poster work, any design work. Bear in mind, I'm not a trained designer, perhaps got an eye for it. And I was in this chip shop and there was a business card on the counter for a photographer and it said, and websites. Now, bearing in mind I'd done the sales thing, I was like, websites, I wonder if we can do some stupid websites or add some writing or copy to websites or graphics. I'll get in touch with him and see what can happen. So I looked at the telephone number, phoned the guy. He was a very amenable guy. He was a photographer. And we met up and I showed him the poster and he went, oh, well, yeah, you know, we'll maybe give you some work. You're just up the road from us. We'll maybe see if you could design some websites. So I had no clue at that point about designing websites. All I thought was they were pictures that appeared on your computer. I had no understanding of the programming behind it. And it was very early days. This is late 90s. And he mentioned at that meeting that he knew the owner of, the licensing manager for Bass Brewery, and they might be interested in licensing the poster for their brand of pubs called It's a Scream. Now, It's a Scream was really big at one point. They had hundreds of these pubs all over the country, but they had one in Farnham. It used to be the Plough. It's called branded It's a Scream. And the guy who started it, David Lee, noticed that there was absolutely no student pubs in Farnham. So he thought he would create a student pub. This was back in the 90s. But he decided that he was going to make the interior for young people. So it wouldn't be an old person's pub that young people went to. It would be a young person's pub that young people went to. Yeah. And so this whole weird kind of random chance of picking up this business card led me to the photographer, to Bass Brewery, to David Lee, to Gloria Mundi, which was in Farnham. And I was in North Camp at the point. And it was just like this weird serendipity of David wants to meet you because he thinks he can put the poster up in his pubs, and P.S. can you do anything else? Is there any other weird stuff that you can do? So I went to this meeting with David, and he said to me, so this poster, yeah, we can buy it, and where do we buy it? And so I pointed him up, GB Posters, and let them do the deal, because I figured we'd get the 10p's off them anyway. 55p if it was sold overseas. Just he then mentioned that they bought CJS, what he called CJS, which was cheap jack shit to give away in their pubs. Okay, and they knew this company called Paladone. Now, Paladone at the time was quite a small company. They had a big success with chocolate body paint and were kind of a novelty company, but they were on the kind of in the paper. They had a really good press agent, and they could get into like the Sunday supplements and silly Valentine's gifts and that. And David said, well, I know the guys at Paladone. Why don't I set up a meeting where you can go and pitch them all your weird, silly, stupid ideas? Oh, brilliant. That's great. I've got bookfuls of them. Literally 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm sitting up going, oh, yeah, that'll be funny. I can see that. And lying back down. Still do that. So I decided that I would pitch them all my really good ideas. And one of them was born out of the need to make a Christmas present for my writing partner. But he had a really chatty girlfriend, and she was like Yoko Ono. She just would not stop giving us her opinion. She'd be making a cup of tea and critiquing what we were writing, you know, and it was just rough stuff. So we're bouncing it backwards and forwards, as you do, if just making your writing partner laugh and seeing if he can make you laugh harder by refining the joke. And it's a process. And she would butt in and just, go away. Why are you even here? This is my flat. He didn't have a car, she did, you know, it was a whole thing. Anyway, so at Christmas, I decided that I would make a remote with a mute button on it and call it the girlfriend remote. And I would give it to my mate with a instruction manual, which was basically press for peace and quiet, press the button. So I went to a local TV repair shop, and he had a remote, but it only had 5 buttons on it. So I made up things for each one of the buttons, and I put it into a box, and I made a stencil up, and I made this whole thing. And I wrapped it up, and I gave it to Jay, and she opened it. Like, I handed it to him, and she went, oh, what's that? And opened it. And she stood there, and I thought, oh, God, she's going to get really, really hacked off at this. And she was like, oh, my God, that's the funniest thing. So I had this and the poster and a few weird ideas. So I went along to this meeting and I pitched them, and Paladone just said yes. You know, they just said yes, yes, and yes. And I looked at their packaging as well, and I no packaging experience, and I said, I can help you with the packaging as well. That's shit. Confidence, it's confidence, isn't it? And he went, well, okay, all right, you know, and we agreed a deal on that. And it just suddenly became this content mill of stupid, weird, random ideas, artwork, silly stuff. Anything we could do, we did. Inflatable slippers, inflatable dartboard, inflatable ashtray. Oh, we had a whole range of inflatable stuff. We had mugs, we had socks, we had glassware. In fact, we went onto their stand at the NEC. The NEC has a big fair twice a year, the autumn and the spring fair. And it's where all of the retailers go to buy all of their stock, and where all of the suppliers and manufacturers go to sell all of their stock. And we walked onto the stand, and I looked around, and my illustrator had come with me at that point, and she was like, this is like a display of your work. It's like an exhibition to everything you've done. And it was. And it was at that point that it was the sudden realization that had that random chance of picking up that business card not occurred, would this moment, and you look back and it's all those kind of connections that come together. So there'll always be serendipity involved in discovery, as Jeff Bezos, founder of Amazon, said. But don't be so focused on your goals that you missed opportunities, because sometimes random chance really is your best ally. Those things that you're so focused on your goals that pop up and you're like, that's noise, just get rid of it. Well, that might be the universe saying, opportunity. Hello. And it's that weird thing that I didn't realise there were so many pregnant people in the world until we got pregnant. I didn't realise that so many people drove my car until I started driving my car. And that's how opportunity works. The more you condition yourself to spot it, the more it's not random chance. It's the more it is luck. Yeah, it's not luck. It's you're training yourself to spot an opportunity. And that's how people get successful. They get really good at identifying that's a good opportunity, that's a bad opportunity, that'll waste my time, that's a good customer, that's a bad customer. So don't be so focused on your goals that you miss those opportunities. Because if I hadn't picked up that card, would I be here right now? Celebrating success. So, everything's going brilliantly, okay? I've got the girl, she said yes, we've bought the big house in Guildford, I've got the sports car pre-crashed, I've got opportunities, I've got a team of people working in Farnham, I've got office space. By this point, David Lee's renting me office space because he's using us and we're doing so much stuff. It's all going brilliantly well, just going brilliantly well. Couldn't have been going better, okay? So I started, bought the car, let's go on holiday, let's get this, let's do that. Oh, I'm the big shot, I'm really going places. And then your customer has a cash flow issue, your biggest customer, your customer that is 90% of your work, has a cash flow issue. That means you have a cash flow issue. And then suddenly the bank phones you one Monday morning, just as you're thinking to yourself, another new week, let's get on with it, and says, we'd like to have a meeting, Mr. Morrison. Could you come in today? I naively said yes, walked in, and the guy said, your overdraft facility, Mr. Morrison, we'd like it reduced from the £27,000 it currently is to zero by the end of the week. Is that all right? Yeah, that makes you go and take a strong drink of coffee and a walk around the block. That effectively ceased trading because my biggest debtor called in their debt. I phoned up my customer and I basically called a meeting and said, here's your latest artwork, but unfortunately I can't leave here until I take some money away. They had a big row in the back office. That's always awkward, especially when it's all family. Ooh, and you're sat with one of the brothers whilst the other two brothers and the mother are having a row. And they gave me an amount of money which reduced it, and I was hoping that would be enough, but the bank had made their decision and we had to shut our doors by the end of the week. That was painful. It also taught me a lot of lessons about how a business should be structured, how processes should be in place, how you should be monitoring your debt and your cash flow. It was a huge, huge lesson. Yeah, it flattened me. It literally flattened me. I had to go home, and I'm not somebody who shies away from bad news. I'm not somebody who shies away from a bad outcome, but it flattened me. And I got home, and it was like I'd stepped into another universe. It was like I was in a weird sitcom, and at some point somebody would say, only joking, and everyone would laugh, and it would all be right. But it wasn't. It was the other side of the coin. It wasn't success anymore. It was abject failure. How do I lose this so quickly? It was just unbelievable. It was like the wind being sucked out of me. Every breath wasn't deep enough. So I did what any good entrepreneur would do. I went on holiday. Yeah. Recharged my batteries. At least that's what I told my customers. So we had some commitments, and I was pretty okay at fulfilling the various bits and pieces that we had to do. But we'd started to build websites at this point. I mentioned the websites before. That had been a little bit of a theme. We'd ticked along. The photographer had passed us some work, and I'd then been going out to print companies and saying, do you need any websites? And they'd say, what's a website? And I would explain, and they'd go, oh, well, we'll ask our customers. And they'd go to their customers, do you need a website? Oh, yeah, we've been thinking about a website. And we started to get some work. So we had a few businesses that had websites. So I thought to myself, how am I going to service these people when I've had to lay off my programmer, lay off my designer? It's effectively just me. So I went on holiday, and in 2 weeks I taught myself how to code. I literally bought a book from bookshop. Remember those? And it was like that, Beginner's Guide to HTML. I started day one, let's do this, and just coded and was like, oh, that makes sense. And the engineering brain just kicked in, was just like, this is how this fits together. Okay, I've got this. And then I would go and I would find a piece of code that worked, and then I would add it to another piece of code that worked from another website, and I'd go, I can just nick all the code from everybody else's websites, you know, making sure that I didn't infringe anyone's copyright. But if I needed something to click and drop down, that's just a piece of code. That's just generic. And I just used to assemble these websites and build everything in Notepad. And I got really good at it. But the problem with it is, it's not having a website. It's having a website that gets found. And it was the getting found bit that was the key to it for me. So I started to think about, so this was pre-Google, how do you get the website found? Because once it's out there, unless you tell somebody, how do they find it? So I started to look into it, and there was this nascent kind of little group of people online that coalesced around a couple of forums about how to get websites found. And that was the seeds of my understanding of SEO and the fundamentals of getting your website found. So Norman Vincent Peale, I really love his work. The Power of Positive Thinking. If you haven't read it, please do. Talk about confidence. This man definitely had confidence. Every problem has in it the seeds of its own solution. If you don't have any problems, you don't have any seeds. I love that notion that the problem in and of itself contains the solution. If you look at it hard enough, dissect it long enough, pull away the noise and get rid of it and get down to the actual nitty-gritty of it, you can figure the way out. And my way out was with the websites. And the lesson that I learned from this was, do not spend more time celebrating your success than paying attention to your marketing. And that's what I had failed to do. I was so busy patting myself on the back about, look at me, I'm doing so wonderfully well, and aren't I so creative and funny and ha ha ha. I hadn't done any marketing, so nobody knew it. You know, I'd stopped at the one customer pretty much. Everybody else was word of mouth. Not bad, but not good enough. So yeah, pay attention to your marketing, because that's what's going to keep the roof over your head, the lights on, the wheels turning. And don't stop learning. That's success lesson number 6. I'm going to take a quick 10-minute break, a little sip of water. You can have a cup of coffee. Hopefully you'll come back and we'll find out how this story ends. Thank you. I'll get back to them. Fantastic. Okay, success lesson number 6. Do not stop learning. So, for a time stamp on this, we're mid-2000s. 2003 maybe, 2004. So we had narrowly avoided eviction from our new house. We didn't have a family at the time, but we had cats. Didn't want to upset them. So we were keeping the plates spinning and the lights on, month to month, hopping from one thing to the next. Thankful for any meal that somebody else would cook we could go to. It's funny how those things make a big difference. Yeah. And I was obsessed about getting websites ranked. Obsessed. I would wake up in the morning, reading a book, eating toast, go into work, spend all day figuring stuff out, come back up to the house, still reading the same book, eat tea and pay my wife some attention, you know. Just absolutely obsessed. And a friend of mine, still a very good friend of mine, lives in Linford. She was a Madonna tribute act. She's a very good, very, very talented singer, dancer. And she wanted to put together a function band, but she also wanted like this other thing, which was this Madonna tribute act, so that you could have either a wedding function band or this Madonna tribute act. Now, I'd not really heard of tribute acts like that. They weren't massive, but they were starting to become a thing. And her shtick was, she was doing Madonna at the time with the white Stetson and the fur coat and the whole new Madonna, whereas all of the other Madonnas, lookalikes, were doing 80s Madonna, you know, Holiday, Lucky Star, can tell I'm a fan. I really like her. She's good. So she came to me and she said, Stu, do you think you could build me a website? I said, not only can I build your website, I'll get it ranked for you and I'll do it for you for no money, because she's a good friend. And she said, we also need a manager for the band. Would you be a manager for the band? I was like, I'd love to be. I've never managed a band. Yes, love to. First gig we ever had was in a pub, and we're in the van on the way back. And John, her partner at the time, now her husband, turns to me and says, so Stu, can you divvy up the earnings? We're going to have to go back. I'd forgotten to ask for payment. Mistake number one as a manager. So so I built the website, and one of the things that we didn't have was photographs. We didn't have digital cameras. Didn't really exist. Camera phones definitely didn't exist, and so I was going to have to set up a photo shoot and get some proper photos and scan them in and use them on the website. So that was the plan, and I just didn't want to just have a boring Madonna, just a picture of Madonna. I wanted her performing, so we tried to get some photos of that, and for some sort of context, to make it more, to sell the lie that she was Madonna, could we do something that was more engaging? And Madonna at the time, she'd done a video with Ali G. And he had exploded in the UK and was just getting big in America. And I thought that would be really funny. Her in the back of a limousine with an Ali G, and we'll take some photographs and we'll send those off and put them on the website, and it will seem more current and fun. So I looked around, and again, not many people with websites, so not many lookalikes with websites. You had to phone up an agent and say, I'd like an Ali G lookalike, please. And funnily enough, they wanted paying to effectively turn up in a fancy dress costume. What's he think he's like? So I wasn't going to pay £300 or £400 just to get a few photographs with Ali G. And I thought, you know what? It's not about Ali G. It's about Madonna. I'm tall. Take it from the right angle. I grow a goatee beard. How hard could this be? So I went to eBay. I purchased an Ali G lookalike outfit, fancy dress outfit, big yellow thing with the beanie hat and all the rest of it. And I grew in the goatee beard. And we went to the photographer, and Ali, Madonna, went and got changed. And I went and got changed. And I came out, and everybody just stopped and was staring at me. And I was like, what? And they were like, oh my God, it's uncanny. It's uncanny. And then I started doing the voice. Like I said, the acting, the mimicry, the impersonations. And so it was all, holla, swallowback, this be Drive by FM, the sound of the ghetto, straight out of Staines. This is the sound of the spell fallen underground, innit? Also available in Egham and Englefield Green. Holla back. And kind of we took the photographs, we sent them off to the agents, and within a couple of days, we got a call back from one of the agents. We said, like to book both the acts. Both. Both. Okay, so there's a highly trained singer, performer, dancer, and a guy in a fancy dress outfit. All right, yeah, go on then. What's it pay? £450. Yeah, you've got me. Yeah, definitely. I'll have to talk to Madonna. She can do it. Yeah. So that was it. I was booked for an entire summer in Mallorca, Bananas nightclub. I'd fly out on a Sunday, perform for the punters, tourists, drunks, spend my time hanging around in bars dressed as Ali G to get people into the club, and then do a set, which effectively was me jigging around behind Madonna and just saying silly stuff like that. And they lapped it up, and I was back for sort of weeks, every 2 weeks, back and back and back for an entire summer. Luckily at the time, the work that I was doing, I could fit in, and that was suddenly one of the kind of great things about being self-employed, is like, I'm not in on a Monday, no one to shout at me. I'm my own boss. I can go out there on a Sunday, I can do the thing, I can do the whole travel thing, come back on a Monday, crash, be up for work on a Tuesday morning. And one week my wife said to me, she trusted me, she said, I'm going to come out. And my mate said, yeah, I'll come out as well. So we all went out, and they did exactly what I did, which was get up at 3:30 on a Sunday morning, get in the car, get to the airport, park the car, get on the transfer bus, you know how it works. You fly out to Mallorca. There's a 1 kilometre walk from Palma Airport to the front door. We have to then wait around for the pickup. We get taken the thing, we do the whole thing, we get back in the thing, fly back to England. They're like, how do you do that? We're knackered, we've had 2 hours sleep. And I went, well, that's what I've been doing for weeks. So welcome to my world. But the adrenaline rush, the sheer joy of being able to make people laugh and just engaging with them and just not breaking character was so much fun. And of course, I was in demand, weirdly, as Ali G, because it turns out lookalikes aren't that reliable. Not all of them. The really good ones, the ones that are really focused on it, they pay the attention to detail, and that was what I really picked up on. So this is my second iteration of the character, and I'd made sure that I phoned up Channel 4 and I found out where they'd bought the costumes, which was in Carnaby Street, and I tracked down where the outfit was, and that's actually one of the exactly the same outfit that he wore. I got exactly the same medallion on, the exact same hat and glasses, which were imported from America. The level of detail really mattered to me, because if I was going to go out there and sell this lie, I wanted nothing to be a weak link. Yeah, if it was going to be a weak link, it was going to be the impersonation, and I had ultimate control over that. And I had a number of different outfits, but that one was always the one that was most popular. The best gig I ever did was for a diamond dealer in New Jersey, who got me to travel out to New Jersey and be Ali G at his son's bar mitzvah. And his pool house was bigger than my house. It was amazing. And they'd recreated the entire Ali G interview set in the garden, and I interviewed all of the guests on video. And he took me up onto his roof terrace and introduced me to all his friends, and it was just magical. Really, really fun evening. And he'd said to me, please don't break character, because he said, I've told them you're the real thing. And he came at the end and he said, you were amazing. He's just like, I'm not even going to attempt the accent, but you were amazing. And he gave me a tip. I just took the tip. You know, it's rude to count the tip. Stuck it in my pocket, got back to the hotel. We're driving back in his son's brand new Mustang. And he was like, man, what are you doing staying in this rough hotel? He actually thought I was Sacha Baron Cohen. He got me on the phone to his mates to sort of talk and that. Got to the hotel, just threw everything on the bed, got changed, showered and all the rest of it. And I counted it, and I had been given $1,000 tip. I was just like, oh my God, smashed it. Should have asked for more money. But yeah, and inevitably, you know, the second character comes along, and suddenly you've got Borat Make Glorious Tribute Act 2. Nearly got arrested in Jersey for nudity on stage, wearing the... there aren't any pictures of me. Thankfully, thank God the internet didn't exist in the way it does now, and camera phones and all the rest of it. There is no embarrassing shots of me in a mankini. Thank God for that. Nobody needs that. That's a lot of therapy. So don't stop learning, because if I hadn't learned how to build websites, if I hadn't learned how to position those websites and get found for those particular search terms, I wouldn't have been able to have that opportunity. And it was an opportunity, okay? And it stemmed from the 7th lesson. And this is one that I teach my kids. Say yes, yeah? Too many of us say no before we've even realised what we're saying no to. Say yes. The rest is just details. So I was... God, talk about name drop. So I'm filming with Dale Winton. It's a really bad name drop, isn't it? Supermarket sweep. No. It was called Stars and Their Doubles. So it was like stars in their eyes, but for people who were lookalikes who didn't sing. And they had a David Brent, they had a David Baddiel, and they had a me and a Billy Connolly. And we just absolutely smashed it. We had a laugh, just making each other laugh, because you're looking at somebody and you're like, I know it's not Billy Connolly, but by fuck does he look like Billy Connolly? And he's like literally walking down the street and people are stopping while they're, hey, Big Ian, hey, how you doing? And he'd just go straight into it, and he had the whole thing. It was brilliant. Sadly no longer with us, but he was an absolute just fun time. So we stood in the green room, and one of the biggest agents, lookalike agents, still around, so I'm not going to mention any names, came up to me and she said, what are you going to do when Ali G is no longer popular? And so, as a throwaway line, not even thinking that somebody would take what I said seriously, I said, probably Little Britain. Because at the time, they were on BBC Three, they'd just come off of the Radio 4 programme, and we're going to get a second series, probably on BBC One. And I thought, you just keep your eye on these people. I've done the comedy writing thing, and you just see who's coming through and what's going on. And I thought she would laugh, because there's two people in Little Britain. It's quite obviously a double act, and me. And I'm not short, fat, and bald. So the conversation carried on, and she walked off. 2 weeks later, as you do, you get a phone call from Richard and Judy's people saying, "We hear you do a Little Britain act. Would you like to come on the show and do it for Richard and Judy?" So I said yes. I figured at some point a grown-up would step in and go, "Who are you, and what are you doing, and why are you here, and where's the short fat guy, and the wheelchair, and the hat, and the whole thing? What madness is this?" So went along, none of that happened, and I'm literally stood ready to go live in front of 50 million people, having never done this act ever, with a guy that I just tapped on the shoulder and said, you're obviously an Andy, he was stocky, bald. And I said, when I squeeze you on the shoulder, just say the catchphrase. I don't like it. I said, leave the rest to me. I had a plan at this point, because I'd gone along thinking, I'll do Ray McCooney, the Scots guy, because he's just like him on his own. Oh, we're not doing that one, Stu. We're doing Andy and Lou. That was the only one that they did with David Walliams. All of the rest of it was short fat guy time. And I'm not short, I'm not fat. You get the picture. So I literally walked on. So Andy, do you like, I've done it, I know I haven't got teeth in. So Andy, do you like Richard and Judy? Lots of mums and dads like them. Squeezed on the shoulder, I don't like them. Oh, you can't say that, we're on their show. I don't like it. Ha ha ha, laugh, 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 we win. Couldn't believe it, absolutely couldn't believe it. And my wife had actually given me a challenge that she was on this bulletin board called Mumsnet, something like that. And she said, can you get Mumsnet in it? And I somehow squeezed it in or whatever. But literally, it was just this complete whirlwind of a day. And then in the car on the way back, I met Gavin, who was one of the short fat guys who looked more like Matt Lucas. And Little Britain was born in the back of a taxi on the way back to Waterloo. Yeah, it was quite a whirlwind, actually. As soon as we put the website up, we started getting bookings. And people just wanted these characters. They were just everywhere for a time. They were just the darlings of the media. They were very funny as well, off screen. They were very good talk show, chat show fodder. So, every time they did something, we would capitalise it. And we were almost at one point in the paper as often as they were. We were in Hello magazine, we were in OK magazine, Sky magazine, most of the major dailies, Red Tops, we were in. But it all came to a head when, and I have to be very careful how I say this, because there was a letter written to us by their lawyer about over-representing how much they endorsed us. But we were asked by the TV Quick and Choice Awards to turn up and walk on stage where, I know him as Matthew, weirdly, Harry Hill, his real name's Matthew. Harry Hill would present the award for best comedy characters, and we were to take it and pretend to be Andy and Lou and do the whole shtick. So we did that, and there's a whole thing that happens when you take the award. You walk off the side of the stage, you walk down. The room's massive. It's full of people, all in tuxedos. Everywhere you look, it's a face you've seen. It's Roddy Corbett. There's Terry Wogan. It's ridiculous, and you're just wheeling through, thinking, this is odd. So you get through, and the first people you meet is house press. Okay, so those are people who are part of the TV Choice and Quick stable of magazines. And they take photographs, right? And they're treating us like we're the actual people, even though they know we're not the actual people. So we get through that, and then it's other invited press, and they're inside, and you pose for them and they take the photographs. And you've all seen the photographs with the logos behind the stars all standing there like in their finery. And then you go through the doors of Dorchester and you're on the streets of London and it's the paparazzi. And I'm not kidding you, you close your eyes and it's like you're staring into the sun because of the flashbulbs going off like that. And you can feel the heat on your face. It's an odd, and they're chasing us down the street. David, Matt, and we run round to the front of the Dorchester. Nobody's planned any of our exit to this. We run round to the front. They won't let us in because we're like just two oddballs with a wheelchair and a bad wig. Eventually, somebody from TV Choice and Quick realised what was happening and ran through and let us in. And we're going up in the lift. Oddest moment ever. Going up in the lift, holding the award. The door opens. In walks Nicole Kidman. So Andy goes, hello. And she's kind of looking like, oh my God, what have I walked into as the door closes behind us. And he goes, but when you woke up this morning, you didn't expect to see me. It's hilarious. We're just the most fun. And we toured all over. We were on TV shows, award ceremonies. Like, in fact, if you go into a fancy dress shop now and you pick the Little Britain fancy dress outfits, that's us on the cover of the on the packaging. And for their next one, which was Come Fly With Me, yeah, they came back. The Smithies came back and asked us to do that as well. And it ended with a Little Britain Facebook group bigger than the actual Facebook group for Little Britain. So Little Britain, in some respects, kind of salesman, web marketer, kind of had the success baked in. But always say yes. It's just details. We would never have got there if we both hadn't just accepted. Gavin had been phoned by a mate of his, and they used to call him George Dawes because he just looks like Matt Lucas. And he said they're doing this thing he'd heard, get yourself down to Richard and Judy's production company, Cactus TV. And he said yes. You know, he's another great person who sort of embraces the opportunity. So yeah, that was a fun time. Brought very short at the end of at the beginning of the credit crunch, which was really frustrating. There wasn't really much more legs in Little Britain, if I'm really honest and look back on it. It had its time. It was starting to slow down. They'd started to do US stuff. The Little Britain US hadn't been the success they'd needed it to be. So it was starting to slow down, and we went from but the credit crunch really hit, and we went from 137 gigs to 7 gigs in a 12-month period. And that's the universe saying to you, you're done now. You've had your moment. Move along. Let somebody else take the spotlight. So it came back. There was a TV series called Lookalikes on Channel 4 quite recently, 2016. And because of the contacts that we'd made, like I say, the really good lookalikes, they really sort of stick together. You can see the people who are chancers or not performers. They just turn up and they look like someone. But the real impersonators, the people that really take you on that journey and entertain you, we kind of had to all had each other's telephone numbers, so if a gig was coming that you couldn't do, you'd speak to it, and you knew who was reliable, and that matters a lot. So we got onto this TV show called Lookalikes, which was just, again, it brought it all back, running around Eastbourne dressed as Andy and Lou, having people chasing us. It was fun. Success lesson 8, measure failure. So the credit crunch hit, and we went from 157 gigs to 7 gigs. In about an 18-month period, it just stopped like a handbrake was applied, because we'd focused on building a customer base of larger corporate companies, because we could do one corporate gig and net 10x one private gig. So we tended to get used for big corporate dues. Madame Tussauds used to take the Andy and Lou waxworks out and put us in. So we used to get paid to stand still. Big accounting firms, big marketing firms, blue chips, a lot of city things. Did one in Monaco, you know, big production values. And what do you do? If the market doesn't want you, it doesn't matter how much you market. You get phone calls from people saying, Stu, look, we can't afford the PR nightmare of throwing £100,000 at a Christmas party and then laying off half our workforce. And you feel for it. You know, you understand the reasoning. It doesn't take the sting out of it any less. But I was exhausted. Touring is not fun. I did 3 gigs in Aberdeen in very quick succession within about a 10-day period. And Aberdeen is a long way north. Okay, so you fly to the gig, you do the gig, you wake up in the morning, you get back on the plane, you fly back, and then you fly back. And I woke up and I didn't know where I was. And I knew that at that point something had to change. And this was the tail end of the last few post-Credit Crunch gigs. And I suddenly realised that I didn't want to do this anymore. This was now not as fun as it was, and it wasn't as lucrative as it was. And there's only so much passion can sustain when you're not getting a reward in some regard. Okay, so don't feel bad that you stop doing something because you're not getting paid to do it, because you take that value in that money and you put it into something that you are passionate about. But if you're not passionate about doing it in the first place, that money just feels like a millstone. And I woke up in this hotel room, and I didn't know whether it was the first time I was there, the second time, or the third time. And I got temporarily lost as well. You know, I didn't know where I was in time. Is it the first week or the second week or the third one? And I knew at that point we had to stop. We had to stop. And I could look at the website, and I could see the visitors had just dropped off a cliff. And I started to analyse the data, and I started to look more at where these people are coming from and what they're doing. And they weren't clicking on all the pictures that we had. They were looking at the homepage and then leaving. So we were seeing that increasing slowdown, and we needed to do something about it. But it was a slowdown in the economy, and frivolity and the silly kind of things that we were doing, just nobody was buying anymore. It just wasn't something that companies were willing to spend money on. So I decided to stop performing, and it was a really tough decision to sell the family home, because we now had 2 kids, and move to Borden, because the kids were going to school at Frensham Heights and we wanted to keep them in the school. So we did what we needed to do, and we sold our house and we paid off as much of our debt as we could, and we moved into Borden, and wondered whilst doing all this what the next adventure would be. But it was because we reacted quickly and understood the problem that we prevented it from becoming a £27,000 problem like it did before, which incidentally got paid back within 12 months. So it's taking that appropriate action in your business that makes a difference to the outcome. Sometimes we don't want to face the horrible, painful, nasty truth of the numbers. But unless you're measuring it and you're paying attention to those numbers and the numbers that matter to your business, you can't make those hard decisions, because you're not making informed decisions. It's all gut feel and fingers crossed, and that's not a business plan. So now I make sure that I'm paying attention to the numbers, because they matter. Arthur Conan Doyle, I came across this one whilst I was researching for this talk a long while back, and this sort of really resonated. It's a capital mistake to theorise before one has data. And that's the nub of it. Why are you even thinking about a solution if you don't know the size, the shape, and the configuration of the problem? Yeah? Unless you've got that data in front of you, you don't know what you can do to solve it. You don't know what your working capital is, what your cash flow is. You don't know all of those key numbers. Whether it's a website or whether it's a business, there's key numbers in every business that will determine very quickly win or lose. You can't get past bad economics. You just cannot. You can ignore it, you can shore it up, you can lie about it, but it will come, it will find you, it will hunt you down in the middle of the night, and at 3 a.m. you will wake up in a sweat realising it's done for. So make sure that you keep your eye on your numbers. Okay, lesson number 8. Failing to measure by how much you are failing doesn't allow you to improve. Okay, we're all going to fail at some point. At some point, there's something not going to go the way we wanted it to go, or go in a different direction to the way we wanted it to go. But unless you're measuring things and keeping an eye on what's happening, you won't know exactly by how much you are failing or missing your targets. So setting yourself some gentle targets, even if they're not around sales, just I'm going to spend 2 hours a week doing this, will allow you to know whether or not this in 2 hours is giving you the result you want. Do you need more? 4 hours? Is 2 hours too much? Can you do it in an hour? So measuring that kind of thing in your business and in your time and keeping an eye on it is really key, because when things start to slide and go wrong, you have much better control over the things you can change quickly. Success lesson 9. Success springs from opportunity. It seems really obvious, this one. It really seems quite straightforward and normal almost, because when you look out forward in your life, it's like a branch of opportunities and options and situations and people and things. But when you look back, it looks like a straight line. And you go, well, it's obvious when I look back what to do, but looking forward, I don't know, it's not so obvious. But all of the lessons I've learned means that I'm more likely to move in the right direction if I'm able to identify those opportunities. If I'd said at school when I went to the careers day, I'm going to be an impersonator, when I said I wanted to be an actor, or I was going to say I wanted to be an actor, and didn't out of fear of shame, ridicule, and all the rest of the social conditioning that we put around, especially youngsters. If I said I was going to be an impersonator to earn my living, and I was going to have a brand new car and send my kids to private school and live in a nice house, they would have laughed at me. If I'd have said I was going to build websites and get them to the top of search engine, they'd have said, what's a website and what the hell in God's name is a search engine? These are things that come up for us as business owners. There are opportunities in all sorts of different ways and directions that your businesses can engage with if you just open your minds to those opportunities. Me being a designer, that now seems an obvious choice. I see patterns, I see information in a particular way. My brain works, and I've got the handle of how my brain works. I had an eye for art and layouts. I was always sketching and drawing as a kid. I was always very artistic, as I said. And it seems quite natural now to look back and see the progression of, okay, slightly odd turns at times, but it was all to do with a process and some creativity involved. And lots of people have those opportunities, and lots of people have those skills. So why was I able to capitalise on them in the way I did? And it's the opportunity to. It's noticing and recognising it and saying that's a good opportunity. And I've spoken about this in the first half. I won't hammer it home. But you need to be proactive, because a pessimist sees the difficulty in every opportunity, but an optimist sees the opportunity in every difficulty. And that was Winston like to punch up Churchill, who said that. And I really like that. That the fact that you've got a problem is like, it's not a problem, it is an opportunity here. What can we do with this? How do we take this to our advantage and make it into something that makes us stronger, even if it's just a lesson we learn from this? Success does spring from that opportunity. And the question is, how many opportunities for success have you had today already? How many times do we walk past it? So not only is opportunity having a mindset that spots opportunity and saying yes, it's saying yes to the idea that opportunity is everywhere. Okay? And you need to kind of hard bake it into yourself. You're your biggest business's ambassador. Nobody loves your business more than you do. You need to transmit that to people and tell people about it. And not in a boorish kind of interrupting way, but in a passionate, engaging way. If you're at a dinner party, turn to the person next to you. What gets you up in the morning? That's what I usually ask, because saying, what do you do for a job is kind of a bit workaday. You know, what are you passionate about? Why are you here today? Tell me a bit about yourself. You know, and when somebody tells you, oh, why that? Tell me. People love talking about themselves. You know, I've just spent the last hour and a half or so talking about myself. Could be better at the start of the day. But those opportunities are everywhere. Standing next to someone in a bus stop, talk to them. See a business card and you think, oh, that looks interesting, pick it up. That's an opportunity. There's opportunities everywhere, and we are also focused on our own problems that we don't see the opportunities that sometimes are right there in front of us. Success lesson 10, narrow beats wide, and this kind of brings us full circle. Lots of times, small business owners try to be all things to all people. So desperate to put money in the bank, and I get it, that they lose sight of the fact that people don't buy generalists, they buy specialists. Yeah? When you go to your doctor, who does he refer you to? He refers you to a specialist. He's a generalist. He's a general practitioner. He doesn't know everything about each individual things, but he knows enough to spot when the process needs to be referred to somebody who knows more about that system or that joint or that particular problem. Specialists get rewarded more than generalists. Doctors don't make as much money as specialists. And it's like that in a lot of industries, that the more specialised you are, there are vulnerabilities in that, but the more specialised you are, the more you can command by way of reward. Because when somebody comes to see you, they have a problem that they see you as the solution to, rather than just being somebody who might be able to help them. But there's this other guy over here, he's also doing similar stuff, so I'll talk to him as well and get another price. You'll see it in many professionals and industries. The longer they go on, the more they specialise. The law industry is particular about this. You get people who work on very specific types of case law, and they get rewarded huge gobs of money. And it's not just the money. The money is a reflection of the value that that information has. So what can you do in your business to specialise around something that is a big problem for your customers, that makes them come to you and value intimately what you do? So narrow beats wide, because if you go wide, you miss those opportunities, because you're going to spend more time, the same amount of time going wide as you are narrow, because we all have a finite amount of time. So you might as well go where the gold is. An expert is someone who has succeeded in making decisions and judgments simpler through knowing what to pay attention to and what to ignore. If you don't know the works of Edward de Bono, can I please urge and encourage you to read about him? He's not the U2 singer, as somebody, when I did this the first time, said, "Is that the U2 singer?" No. And I love that. Someone who has succeeded in making decisions and judgments simpler through knowing what to pay attention to and what to ignore. And that's what a specialist does. They get you to the answer as quickly as they possibly can. When you go and see your doctor and you're in pain and he refers you to the specialist, you know that the specialist is going to get you to the pain-free solution as quickly as possible. You feel relief. You feel the doctor has helped you on that journey. What can you do in your business to specialise? What opportunity is there that your customers are telling you about that you're probably breezing past, that you could focus your business around? It doesn't have to be the entirety of your business. It might only be for 10 or 20% of your customer base that you do this specialist thing. But those 10 or 20% of people are producing 80% of your income. And then you can expand, because you're only using 20% of your time. Get rid of the time wasters. You've then got 4/5 of the time to find more customers who are like this, who are willing to focus on that problem and pay you for it. Don't go wide, go narrow. As I said at the beginning, if you're in a category of one, you have a very, very easy way of identifying the brand that your business represents, successfully delivering a value proposition. If you charged a premium for that because it was highly valued, how successful could you be by making that small change? So what is your unique skill, your unique value, your unique benefit to your customers? And do your target audience know that? Are you communicating that on your website? The way I can tell a business is not sure of who their customers are and what value they have of them is the word solution in their headline. We provide IT solutions. We provide health benefit solutions. That's a non-answer for nobody. Nobody goes out into the world and goes, what I need is a solution. I know, Starbucks, beverage solution. Yep. It doesn't work. It's such a wishy-washy wimp-out. And if you don't know what your biggest benefit is to your customers, talk to some past customers. If you don't have any past customers, go and bang on a few doors of people who are likely to be customers. Buyers. Yeah. What do you like about this? What would you love about it? It's all really good feedback when they say, we don't like this, we prefer it to do that. It has this other thing. Informed opinions are really, really hard to come by. So the more your customers are telling you it, whether they're picking up the phone and shouting at you that they don't like something, that's just passionate feedback. Yeah. Might be unwelcome, but it's passionate. And that's what counts. So getting feedback loops in your business that allow you to focus on what your customers want rather than what you want to do allows you to improve your business. And if you build a process around that, you can step back from the process, get other people to do the process, and then you have a value and an asset in that business. And until you can do that, the business requires you, then you don't really have a saleable asset, because that business without you is a job that somebody else has to do. And if somebody has to buy that business and then put an employee in, that's a cost to the business. That's why you should always focus on what value you are to your business. And it's probably more than you actually value yourself. Oh, we'll get to that. We'll do that soon. We'll be making money this time next year. I know all these things because I've done all these things. So, your success. Random chance can happen anywhere. Opportunities strike in the weirdest of places, as I've proven. Don't be afraid to strike up a conversation with a stranger. The worst that they can say is no. And no's not a bad word. No just says no, but not right now. Kids know that. That's why they pester. So it doesn't matter that the one person, who that one person is. It doesn't matter who you are talking to, because it's who that person knows. And we all know lots and lots of people. We're all connected much more these days, especially with the internet. So my challenge to you is this, to take away. And I try and do this on a daily basis, to tell one person about my business. One new person who hasn't heard of Mr. Metric about it and what we do for them. We build websites. We create opportunities for them to get their message in front of their customers. We manage their hosting, and we take away the technical nightmares that they have. Okay, I've done it now. There's people in this room now know what we do. There's a new person, Dawn, hello, you now know what I do. That's my quota, and that's so easy to do. The person at the chip shop, the person that is in the queue in front of you, could that person who smiles at you and says, oh yeah, and gives you the thing to put between their shopping and yours, hi, how are you? What's your day like? Yeah, these opportunities are there. So what does the future hold? Well, who knows? Nobody can predict what's going to happen after October the 31st, especially. Will the country be taken to the court for being no longer great or a united kingdom under the Trade Description Act? Who knows? But the one thing that you can do is look at your business and make it better. Always, always. There's always an opportunity to make it better. So that's it. That's the end of this presentation, but hopefully not your success. And if you have any questions, I am more than willing to answer them. Thank you very much. Well, yes, you can. You can. But surely that's about taking ownership of these decisions, about having the right process, knowing your numbers and spotting opportunities. Absolutely.
I just want to tell you very quickly, my career is like, because you've got to remember my age. Zero next year, days of the week. And when we were going to school, girls went to the deputy headmistress, boys went to the master. And I knew exactly what I wanted to do. And she was delighted when I said I knew what I wanted to do. And then it all went pear-shaped because it wasn't on the list.
Oh.
I wanted to be a forensic scientist. And she said two things, and why should I not believe her? First one was completely wrong. She said they don't take women. Well, of course she don't, and they are bound to believe one time. The other one, you see, in this day and age, you are guided with your subjects. She just said you're doing the wrong subjects. I think you'd be a very good teacher. Go and have a day at college. Go and have a day at college, and college was a bore. I hated teaching, so I didn't stick with it for 8 years.
Yeah, be wary of other people's well-meaning advice.
That wasn't well-meaning advice, was it? It was just it was an easy option for her. Forensic scientist not on the list. How do we get rid of this problem? We just tell two lies.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there are many times, business, life, whatever, where other people will be more self-serving, and that's why understanding human motivation, that helps with the business, because if you can help somebody understand what their motivations are for doing what they're doing, you can help them see the value in the benefit of what you are providing. So thus resolving any conflict within them to not buy or to be unsure.
The other one on my impersonating front, which worked very well for a while until you really are untrained. When you're at a teacher training college and the other one is the Polytech, which is mainly to boys, and all the sort of the socialising afterwards, what course are you on, you know. And I said to my friend Roger, look at this, I said, we're doing our teaching practice on the Isle of Wight. We're going to tell them while we work on the ferry. Because we knew enough about the ferries to be able to, you know, answer questions. So, and they'd say, well, how did you meet? Because she's from Birmingham and I was up and we were pen pals, and we just decided that after we finished school, we'd get together and, you know, be together for a while. So that's why we came down to Southsea and lived in Southsea, and we worked on the ferries. It was really, we were interesting.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, a friend came along and joined us. And of course, she just got the hysterics and never kept out.
Oh. Fun times. So yeah, but if anybody has any questions, business orientated or otherwise, here to